Counsel, approach the bench. Your behavior in this courtroom today is unacceptable and will not be tolerated.
At exactly 10:47 this morning, the United States watched a moment where a former president stood just one sentence away from a jail cell. This wasn't just an idea or a guess. It was real. Inside that courtroom, things happened that legal experts are already calling one of the biggest clashes with the judge's power in modern American history. And it's very important you understand this. Every second of it was saved in writing, on camera, and as it happened. A federal judge looked right at Donald Trump and gave a clear order: sit down or go to jail. Trump did not listen. What happened next was a 12-minute standoff that made courtroom security move forward, forced lawyers to physically step in, and left the whole American legal system frozen in a moment of doubt. Over the past few hours, I've read court papers, legal explanations, and stories from people inside the room. I'm going to explain exactly what happened, because in this case, the details matter much more than the headlines. But to fully understand what happened, you first need to understand the mood that led to this fight. For weeks, experienced legal watchers had been noticing warning signs. These weren't official papers or formal requests. They were patterns, small changes that people who watch courts recognize immediately. Trump has fought with judges before. That's nothing new. However, those fights have always followed a known pattern, almost like a script he knew by heart. Showing up late to get media attention. Mumbling comments just loud enough for others to hear. Posting angry statements during lunch breaks. Leaving the building with strong comments prepared for the cameras waiting outside. That had become the habit. That was what everyone was ready for. Then, yesterday, that habit broke. Analysts who closely watched Trump's behavior in court began noticing warning signs. Late-night Truth Social posts filled with anger, a last-minute change within his legal team, extra security guards arriving earlier than usual, and perhaps most worrying of all, his lawyers suddenly going quiet. There's a lesson I've learned from watching these cases. When Donald Trump goes silent before a court visit, it usually means something is about to happen. By early morning, courthouse security was already reporting what they called an usual level of stress inside the defense team's area. Emergency strategy meetings that hadn't been held in weeks. The kind of hurried, last-second meetings Trump's lawyers only call when they're getting ready for something wild, a bad witness, an unexpected decision, or a client about to go completely off the plan. No one could tell which situation was about to happen. Some guessed that all three might be happening at once. What court watchers did notice, however, was a change in Trump's mood. In federal court, even the smallest change in how a defendant sits doesn't go unnoticed. Experienced judges see it immediately. Judge Engoron was watching. Now, let's step inside the courtroom. Trump sat at the defense table in his usual Navy suit. The prosecution was asking questions to a key money witness. Everything seemed normal, standard steps. Then it happened. Trump didn't whisper a complaint to his lawyer. He didn't write a note or poke his team. He spoke out loud, sharp, direct, focused, straight at the witness. That's a complete lie, Trump declared. A total made-up story. Everyone in this room knows it. The courtroom froze. Imagine the scene. Pence stopped writing. People watching held their breath, and camera operators in the extra room leaned forward to catch every second. Judge Engoron slowly took off his reading glasses and looked up. The warning he gave wasn't routine, polite, or gentle. Legal experts reading the transcript described it as fast, clear, and fully backed by the power of federal punishment rules. "Mr. Trump," the judge said, his voice cutting through the silence, "you will not speak unless spoken to. You will not interrupt these events. Is that understood?" Then the story took an unexpected turn. Trump refused to stop. Seconds after the warning, he leaned back in his chair and said loud enough for the court reporter to hear, "This whole thing is a joke, a complete joke." Let's be clear about what had just happened. A defendant in a federal trial openly laughed at a sitting judge on the record immediately after a direct warning. These weren't the words of someone asking for kindness. They were the words of a man testing whether anyone in the room had the power to stop him. Judge Engoron did have that power, and he used it. Court papers confirm that the judge gave not one, not two, but three increasing warnings within 4 minutes. The first came after Trump interrupted testimony. The second followed a loud huff and a mumbled, "fake court," directed at the prosecutor. The third warning came when Trump physically stood up from his chair. "Mr. Trump, sit down immediately," the judge ordered. Sit down now, or I will have you removed from this courtroom and held in a jail cell for the rest of today's events. That single word, detention, hit like a loud thunderclap. Think about what just happened. A federal judge in the middle of an active trial had just told a former president of the United States that he would be sent to a jail cell if he refused to listen. This was no longer a warning. It was a direct, legally binding order with immediate results. Trump's lead lawyer, Alina Habba, quickly stood up and asked for an emergency private talk. The judge allowed it for 12 minutes. 12 painful minutes. Lawyers gathered at the bench, speaking in urgent whispers. Meanwhile, Trump remained standing at the defense table, arms crossed, jaw tight, refusing to sit. When the private talk ended, Habba returned to the defense table and leaned toward Trump's ear. Witnesses in the seats reported she spoke fast, her tone urgent. Trump shook his head. She tried again, more strongly this time. He looked away. Finally, this detail is important. She placed a firm hand on his shoulder and said something that caused him to slowly, unwillingly, lower himself back into his chair. This is what matters. Trump's own legal team had to physically step in to prevent their client from being taken to a holding cell in the middle of his own fraud trial. Now, let's look at why Judge Engoron's response carries such weight. This wasn't just about keeping order in the courtroom. It was about something far bigger. Trump's behavior wasn't just rude. It threatened to upset the legal process itself. Judge Engoron, fully aware of this, responded with maximum power. Not emotionally, not meanly, but legally. He made no empty threats, no hesitation. He listed specific punishment rules. He mentioned established jail examples. That level of exactness matters a lot. Former federal prosecutors speaking without giving their names described Trump's behavior as planned trouble, an obvious attempt to create reasons for a new trial or appeal. And yet today, Judge Engoron showed that he is both patient and prepared. His responses were not just legally correct. They were firm, careful, and totally boss-like. The warnings were given with such exactness that there was absolutely no room for misunderstanding and, importantly, no room for appeal. That level of exactness tells us something important. This judge expected this very situation. Judge Engoron isn't sitting back quietly. He's actively managing a defendant who seems to believe the rules don't apply to him. Here's what most people reading the headlines will miss. Getting a federal judge's attention isn't easy. Today, Trump managed it and immediately felt the results. For decades, Trump has worked under a simple idea that he can scare, outlast, or overpower any opposition. That courtrooms, like business meetings, eventually give way to pressure. Federal judges, however, do not. They hold jobs for life. They are safe from political influence, and they hold something Trump has rarely met in his life: real enforceable power. Judge Engoron's warning is now permanently recorded in the official court paper. It wasn't meant to embarrass Trump. It was meant to send a clear signal. Blocking, scaring, or dramatic interruption will not be allowed in this courtroom. The judge made it clear that Trump's behavior broke the basic standards of courtroom manners. Put simply, you are not above the rules. You follow the same rules as everyone else or face the same results as everyone else. You rarely hear that tone from a sitting federal judge unless something really serious is at stake. Here's what most news is missing. This was far from a single event. This wasn't simply a defendant losing his cool. Let me walk you through the full picture of what happened in a single 6-hour window. During the morning session, Trump interrupted sworn testimony and ignored direct judicial orders. By lunch, he posted multiple attacks on the judge via Truth Social. His legal team filed papers formally questioning the judge's fairness. Outside the courthouse, he told reporters that the entire trial was a shame to everything America stands for. All of it happening within the same 6 hours. When Trump moves multiple pieces across multiple fronts at the same time, it signals something far bigger is being planned. Legal experts are now considering several worrying possibilities. 1. Trump is on purpose laying the groundwork to skip future court events entirely. 2. He is systematically attempting to cause a new trial through constant disruption. 3. And this is the situation causing the most worry, he may be attempting to create a constitutional crisis by openly ignoring a direct court order. Some background helps explain why he is acting this way. Trump is under huge legal pressure. His lawyers want him silent, avoiding more punishment charges. His political advisors want him to appear strong and unwilling to give in. Campaign donors want him to seem treated unfairly and likable. His voters want him to fight openly and loudly. He is trying to balance all of these competing demands while facing multiple criminal charges across different places. When defendants in that position make sudden dramatic moves, they are rarely acting from strength. They're acting under pressure. They're acting out of desperation. They're acting out of desperation. They are acting from weakness. Today, Judge Engoron removed one of those options from Trump's playbook. He didn't give unclear warnings. He didn't put off difficult decisions. He didn't ask for lawyers' advice before acting. He made a direct, clear threat. Follow the courtroom rules or go straight to jail. Let's step back and consider why this matters beyond the courtroom drama. What we're seeing is a basic test of judicial responsibility, a stress test of the American rule of law. Trump wants to see whether he can bend the system to his will. Judge Engoron wants to prove that the system still stands firm. Prosecutors aim to prevent events from falling into chaos. And the American public on every side of politics is watching closely to see whether justice truly applies equally without exception. Trump once believed he could delay this trial forever. He believed he could scare witnesses into changing their stories. He believed he could use media attention to pressure the court into good decisions. He believed he was untouchable. Tonight, the exact opposite is happening. The trial is moving forward on schedule. Witnesses are answering questions under oath without hesitation, and the judge in charge is holding him responsible in real time on camera and on the record. Outside the courthouse, the lead prosecutor spoke to the media briefly. She made it clear the case will continue exactly as scheduled. No person is above the law, and the court has made completely clear that further interruptions will carry serious results. These weren't fancy words for headlines. They were formal statements from a prosecution team fully aware of just how high the stakes have become. So what comes next? As the trial unfolds over the coming days and weeks, more details will come out about what Trump intended with today's outburst. But one thing is already certain. Judge Engoron's response was entirely right. It kept essential courtroom order, protected the honesty of the trial, and strengthened the constitutional power of the federal bench. What happens next depends entirely on Trump's actions. If he follows the court's orders, this moment will be remembered as a turning point for responsibility. If he ignores the court again, Judge Engoron has already shown he is fully prepared to act. Real results are on the table, and he has made it clear that those results include jail. Tonight, reports suggest Trump's legal team is visibly rushing. Mar-a-Lago is unusually quiet. Too quiet. And when Trump goes silent after a fight like this, it usually signals one thing. He is recalculating, weighing his next move. Because today, Trump was faced with a truth he has fought his entire life. Federal judges hold real power, courts hold binding power, and no one, not even a former president, stands above the law. Here are 3 key takeaways from today's events. First, a federal judge gave a direct, legally binding threat to jail a former president. This was not symbolic, not procedural. It was a clear on-the-record message. Follow the rules of this court or go to a cell. Second, Trump's own legal team had to physically step in to prevent him from being removed from the courtroom. That alone tells you how close we came to an unexpected moment in American legal history. Third, this wasn't accidental. Trump's behavior appears to be part of a planned strategy, testing judicial limits, creating reasons for appeal, or setting the stage for something even larger. But today the court pushed back harder than he expected. The courtroom held. The judge stood firm. And for the first time in this legal story, Donald Trump appears genuinely unsure about what comes next. This story is far from over, and I'll be covering every development as the next chapter unfolds. If this breakdown helped you understand what actually happened today, not just the headlines, but the legal steps and their real-world importance, consider subscribing. I do this kind of deep analysis regularly, and in the comments, I want to hear from you. Do you think Trump will listen going forward, or are we heading toward an even bigger fight?